Let's go live. We are live.
Sometimes they're fully
Welcome, folks. This is House Corrections and Institutions Committee. It is Friday, March 20th. We are working on our bill 294, which Connor reported in his lightning rod.
I'll probably get it again today, yeah.
Something about your face.
Canning grill, man, it's, yeah, the Inquisition.
This pertains to us putting together language on having a report back in terms of providing telecommunication services to folks who are incarcerated and looking at different options, because right now the person who's incarcerated does have to pay to stay connected to an approved call list. You can't willy-nilly just call anyone. It has to be an approved call list. So there was concern on the floor for the report for who DOC needs to reach out to get some feedback on. It was brought up about have we included folks who are incarcerated or formerly incarcerated. So the members from Burlington, Representative Chena, and the member from Northfield, Representative Donahue, have an amendment to present to us. So Brian, I'm turning it over to you. If you could introduce yourself for the record. We do have the language. Have people seen the language at all? Or should they put it up on the screen?
No, we haven't.
Okay, sorry about that. So Brian, if you could introduce yourself for the record.
I'm Representative Brian Chena from Burlington. And the amendment would add to the language about the work, I believe it's a working group, it's called. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, no.
Must consult.
The stakeholder list,
Yeah, thank you.
this amendment would add to the stakeholder list incarcerated Vermonters, comma, formerly incarcerated Vermonters, comma, and organizations representing incarcerated or formerly incarcerated individuals. And it's because it would help better understand the impact of the choices made by this, it would better impact the results of the study conducted by DOC if stakeholders included those most directly impacted by this, by the policy, which are those who are incarcerated. So having the perspective of incarcerated, formerly incarcerated, or organizations who represent those viewpoints would strengthen the results of the study.
So I have a couple of questions. So for folks who are incarcerated, so it'd be current folks or formerly incarcerated, they're out in the community, who would determine who's going to be reached out to? How would that work?
I guess whoever's reaching out to the other stakeholders.
So it's DOC would be consulting with a list of folks. And it's a PUC, Joint Fiscal Office, any one or more nonprofit provider or civic, because they operate down in Mississippi, representatives of families of incarcerated Vermont or organizations representing families, community-based reentry service providers, and justice reform organization, or any other stakeholders or subject matters. So, and that leads to my question. We didn't clarify how representatives of families of incarcerated Vermonters. So I'm just wondering, how would an incarcerated person voice, how could they be part of being consulted? And how could someone who's on furlough or parole, where they maxed out their sentence, know that they could participate? And then what organizations do represent incarcerated or formerly incarcerated folks? What are some of those organizations?
Well, I can answer this from my perspective, being a member of the stakeholder group for the Women's Replacement Facility, because over a year ago, the committee asked that I be included with Free Her Vermont, and then members of the committee have participated. I don't know if any of you come, but Eric McGuire was coming for a while. I feel like there's someone else who's been showing up. Ray Garofano, like different members of the General Assembly. I don't know how people are getting it. Maybe it's because they're human services have been invited. But what I've observed with the stakeholder group is they did bring in incarcerated individuals once from CCR, from CCR.
Facility.
Yes, yeah, the Chittenden facility. So one time they had two women who were at a level of progression in their sentencing that they were able to safely be brought there and present. And in terms of, but that's the only time I've seen them bring incarcerated individuals in the time that I've gone to those meetings. It was only once. However, Free Her Vermont comes, and now the Ishtar Collective has been coming to the meetings. I don't know if everyone knows who Ishtar Collective is.
Free her, yes.
Ishtar Collective is a work representing a group representing sex workers. And the reason I think it's good they've been coming because sex work is illegal, and also it's a way of survival for a lot of women, fortunately, who are in those positions that end up incarcerated. So that's a great group to have to represent that perspective. In addition to Free Her, there may be more out there, but I know that DOC has those groups currently coming. I would also say that Mercy Connections, because it provides mentorship to women in one that are formerly incarcerated, also brings the perspective in of women who have been incarcerated to that group. And I also think that actually, I would say a lot of those service providers are bringing that perspective, even if they are not directly coming. And so if DOC wanted to bring in formerly incarcerated people, they could just ask those existing service providers to put the call out for action. And for incarcerated folks internally, they could put a call out for action. I would trust them to figure out how to manage that safely.
Would the community-based reentry service providers be a tool to bring in formerly incarcerated folks? Because we already include the community-based reentry service providers, so that they would be one of the tools that would recommend a formerly incarcerated person, because they work with folks who are reentering the community.
I think they could. I think without explicitly naming that we want that stakeholder present, though, we risk them being excluded based on what I've seen with the stakeholder group, because they only brought incarcerated people in directly twice. And I do honestly feel like Free Her has to fight to be heard in that group. So I think adding them to the list, at least to make sure that people are thinking to include them.
Questions?
I mean, we get to just leave it to DOC, right? Because oftentimes when we get to talking about stuff like this, it seems that we can think of a number of organizations representing the women who are or have been incarcerated, and sometimes it's hard to reach or think about or consider the men. And so I'm hopeful that someone at DOC knows better than we do. Because I mean, you're not talking about the fraught nature of the relationship between DOC and those who are formerly incarcerated. The logistics of it, right? Yeah. Well, I mean, that's kind of on them, right?
I don't know how to do this for those who were incarcerated and are not any longer, but I welcome this. This is how you find out from people who've experienced it. This would have helped if I had, or we had a little bit of this, and this is the result. This actually is probably more important than anything. I can't imagine any of these people saying this isn't a good idea as long as you want to spend the money. So I'm all for adding these people if we can get them incorporated in the discussion. I don't know how to do that.
I think for formerly incarcerated, another option is through probation. And someone who's so there's many ways DOC could think about formerly. I think the biggest challenge is going to be how do you include the voice of those incarcerated? Because the way the system is designed is from my perspective, it's very complicated to include people who are in a secure facility in the current landscape, because it's not like we have the facilities on site for remote participation yet. I think hopefully that comes out of this. Like hopefully there's rooms in every facility where people could do video conferencing with their therapists and their families and courts and stuff someday.
Before we go, just John, what is your schedule between now and 9:30?
I just need, I think I'm okay.
Okay, because I'm thinking if I can get out of a meeting at 9. If when we finish with this, we could go to the language for the
Oh, you mean
juvenile,
you and I, yeah,
with the committee.
oh, sure.
Okay, let's go. Troy and then Sean,
Very
Troy
quick.
and then whatever your name is, Connor.
Very quickly, I just want to state that I'm in full and unconditional agreement with Representative Winter.
Oh, my God.
This is a very celebratory moment. Is that unusual or?
It happens. It happens.
Do we look like we're always in alignment?
No, you both have mustaches. The mustache caucus.
Went to different high schools together.
And not to bring the kumbaya, but I think I'm gonna state the obvious. I can't imagine anyone who would be receiving benefits saying, I don't want them. So the real question is
Oh.
the cost
Now you're gonna put.
associated with this, is it gonna result in results that make sense here?
Yeah.
Because we can put money lots of places.
Yeah,
Is this the right place to put it, is the question.
yeah.
Well, it's a different question. We're just talking about the stakeholders.
Yeah.
Their input's gonna impact where the money goes. I think that's what he's saying, right? Like, and so, because like right now, think about how much money is wasted on the current system by people. I put money in people's account to call me that they don't even use because the system's so messed up. And then you can only put in like a chunk of money at a time. And then even if they do use it, then to refill it, you have to put in that chunk again. And it just, so it's like, what's that?
It accumulates.
Yeah, it's a mess. So to have people who are actually struggling with that explain why they're not using money when someone puts it in for them to even call them, and like what's all the glitches, it'll make it work better. And then in the end, that ultimately serves the taxpayer better because money is being spent more efficiently.
So we have more questions here. Connor?
Yeah.
But you gotta defend whatever on the
Right,
floor.
and another question, and I don't want to change the language at this point, but maybe we could imply it heavily. There's like different experiences between incarcerated individuals depending on where you're housed, right? And I just want to make sure like the voices of those in Mississippi would be heard as well, because that's going to be people who are, 1,000 miles away from their family, as opposed to somebody who might get visitation regularly. And I could see this being even more important to them, right? So.
I'm just dealing with the speaker right
And
now.
Connor, are you proposing a way for that to be included? Like Core Civic and also somebody down south, or if
Yeah, I mean, like,
Or just leave it
core
to
civics
DOC.
in there to talk to, so I think maybe we could lean on corrections. Just, I don't know if you need a language change.
This is the question, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
We can certainly tell them our intent is that it's all,
Yeah,
not
yeah.
just the ones that are here.
Representative Donahue, did you want to say anything? Because I keep jumping right in and answering the questions because I'm here, but I'm mindful you're still in the room and. Well,
Just saying, I don't think the witness can invite another.
oh,
Thank you.
Yeah,
Brian.
I'm sorry, I'm gonna deal with a text with the speaker to clarify something. So go ahead.
Representative Donahue, would you like to speak?
Representative Van Donahue, I think people were speaking so well, I didn't feel the need, but it did occur to me, things like outreach. Nothing says consult with means you need to have people meeting at a meeting somewhere. There's a lot of ways you can do surveys, you can put up little posters in probation officers saying, if you'd like to weigh in, use this, there's just a lot of different ways that people can approach it.
Yeah.
Sure.
We have Print on here too, and they're just outstanding at gathering
That's
information from our incarcerated folks.
if
And I was
anyone
gonna
can-
mention, I think there's a prisoners' rights organizations, in terms of organizations, there are other organizations.
Did Trin do the Springfield survey?
They've done it, they did it.
Southern State, I should call it.
No, they've done a lot of surveys since 2020 to about end of 24, beginning of 25. Now they're reconstituting PRIN, and they'll probably be doing another type of survey.
That's good. That 2022 one was very useful, I thought.
Yeah, and then they updated it at the end, which was like end of 24. And now PRIN is being reconstituted towards the end of 25 in a different form. And they'll be doing a different type of survey going forward. So where are we? Anything else from the two reps?
Good news.
So we need to take a straw vote. What is the feeling of the committee before we? I need a motion.
I move we take a straw vote.
No, you gotta move that
I find the amendment favorable.
we support the amendment or not support the amendment. So what would be,
I
what,
moved.
I move that we support the amendment.
okay, so it's seconded.
Second.
Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Joe?
I'm fine.
wow.
10-0 question mark.
So it's-
10-0.
We're gonna put a cut.
And Joe one.
Start going. Who's missing?
Wilbur.
Oh,
Remove Thomas. Well, thank you. I don't want to take up more of your time.
Oh,
It's just a simple thing. Thanks for.
Thank you.
Thank you both.
Thank you,
representatives.
Thank you.
I can hang out for the next thing.
Good, but Brian, if you gave me money, I'd call you.
Kevin, you gotta put some fancy pants on.
I can't.
Colors.
Leopard cow, that was her last scene.
Oh, my God.
Oh, my God. I just.
Oh, there's help.
The likeness is eerie.
It's right there.
thank you, Brian. Oh, God, that's a good one. You better not keep that there.
Oh, he'll love it.
Yeah,
He might go alive.
yeah.
I mean, as long as the chair doesn't spin.
No, it's just, so you're good to go, Connor.
I'm good to go.
You're the only one that had anything. You are lightning. I want to spend some time
Castleton may have something to say to you today.
with the language that is possibly going to be an appropriations committee. I know you had a conversation with Katie or not. She sent an email to us.
I did.
Have you changed anything?
It's for, the basic thing is it is literally a policy disagreement. I would expect them to not want the language I sent, in which case I think you guys just need to figure out.
So you have the language.
Yes,
Can you share with Tate and put it up on the screen and you can get to the hot seat if you want, or you can stay where you are, whatever works for you. It's fine with me at 9 o'clock on a Friday,
I will send it to you and I'll come up and screen share.
whatever works for you. We'll give you more chocolate.
I just sent it, but I'm just gonna share. Yeah, that's not okay.
If you're comfortable there, there's nothing there.
Yeah, it's, I'm happy to talk to them. I need to feel important.
That's why we're all.
Part of John's ego. You gotta like keep,
You kind of are important, John.
gotta fluff it up.
Between you, Scott, and Tate, we would not be able to function. And I'm gonna put Scott, I'm gonna put Tate in this chair.
I don't think he wants to be there.
He does better than me, let me tell you.
I welcome it. Okay, John Gray, Office of Legislative Counsel. Good morning. Happy Friday.
Yeah, so while John's getting settled, this is language that is really being started by the House Human Services Committee. And
System.
the Appropriations Committee for the person Representative Bloomley, who works with the Department of Children and Family Services budget. They have been working, trying to get from the department what the cost would be to provide services to juveniles who are in DCF custody and under beds that are under DCF as well. They're really having a hard time getting that budget number. So they would like to propose some language that requires that budget amount to be shared with the legislature before we move ahead with putting up any beds. There's what the chair of House Human Services Committee said to me yesterday, and John was there as well. There's about 41 to 44 beds out in the system. Some of those are residential beds. They're just out in the system. Maybe you can help a little bit because you were on Human Services. But of those, I want to say 44 beds, 14 of those is the facility that we're looking to build. And the question is, if they contract out to an entity to staff that facility or those other beds, what is going to be the cost to do that? Is it going to be too expensive to contract out? And then it would be better if we had state employees doing the work. instead of contracting out. Appropriations Committee and Human Services Committee cannot get that information from DCF. So they want some language to apply some pressure. And what it is that nothing, no beds will be put online or could go forward until they get that information. And I understand that.
Mhm.
The problem is where we are in the 14-bed facility that we're looking at and where BGS is, in terms they've already gone out with an RFP, they're in negotiations, we're in the crosshairs. of this. We don't want to stop the negotiations, but we don't know what's going to happen come the end of the session if DCF doesn't come forward with a budget. Then we've put in some language in terms of what happens over the summer and fall to see if we could release those monies. But that has implications in our world in terms of how we move, BGS moves forward with putting in a new juvenile facility. So that's what we're trying to thread the needle on. Yeah,
Why isn't DCF giving us the numbers we need?
go ask them.
It's been
They
like that for
can't
years.
or they won't.
I don't know. I'm not upstairs, so I don't know. And I'm not downstairs on appropriations.
Well, I'm nobody, but I'll go ask them that question. That's the basic question.
People's ask.
The question is being asked. I also just want to be clear, I don't know if it's DCF, John Gray, Legislative Council. I don't know if it's DCF or AHS that is not.
For the
Right.
administration.
Right.
It's under the fifth floor.
So I think the framing that the chair gave makes sense of the language proposal, which is basically to say, look, there's been spending authority authorized for this, but in FY 27, there's not going to be any expenditure of funds unless you provide the information.
So let's put the language up a little bit, and then Troy, 'cause
Spending authority, is that broad right now to include both the general fund and the capital bill? Or is it just
There'll be
general?
no expenditure. I'll show the language.
no expenditure in FY 27 until they come forward with a budget.
Here we go. Happy to read through, just draft language hasn't been edited. This was just quickly typed up yesterday in response to discussions. So this is beginning on or before August 1st of this year and ending December 2026. So you can think of up to the next legislative session. AHS, in consultation with Departments for Children and Families and BGS, shall monthly report to the Legislative Justice Oversight Committee on its plan to develop the Green Mountain Youth Campus, including its progress on a complete, unambiguous written analysis to the estimated costs of an annual operating budget for full utilization of the proposed 41-bed high-end system of care consistent with prior budget language. So this is saying monthly report in the off session to Joint Legislative Justice on your progress, and then you can see the kind of stronger language, complete, unambiguous written analysis. The idea is bring us the budget proposal. So
That's there. I gotta be careful here, because we could also ask this, even if they do come forward with a budget while we're still in session, we could still require this, even if they come forward with a budget by the end of the legislative session.
sure, although my understanding is that if they did come forward with the point to apply political pressure and they gave the information because of the pressure, you wouldn't need this anymore, right? So, but yes, you would have the ability to not include or include as appropriate.
So for that, for A, that would or would not impact what is currently the RFP that BGS has out there, and they've got a bid back. That language would not impact that, correct?
So A would impact nothing. It's just a monthly report. It's B is so A is just saying monthly report in the off session to an off session committee on your progress. And then B is the actual meaningful cudgel. In FY 27, Departments for Children and Families and the Buildings and General Services shall not expend funds for further development of the Green Mountain Youth Campus unless and until the chairs of House of Probes, Corrections Institutions, Healthcare, Human Services, and Senate Committees on Probes, Health and Welfare and Institutions approve the written analysis in subsection A So this is what would have the effect. I can come back to this because I know there are going to be questions, but this is where my colleague Katie McClin raised some issues about whether or not this is even doable to have the chairs approve. We can talk about that, but I know people are going to have questions about the basic mechanics of the.
Right.
We can still appropriate in the capital fund. We're at about 750,000 right now. They might not be able to expend what we appropriate. Accurate?
Exactly. This is predicated on there being existing spending authority, right? This is not an independent grant of spending authority that then says it's contingent on approval. It's saying otherwise existing spending authority can't happen until this condition is met.
And does anything change? Right now, it's $772,557 in cash. Does anything change between cash and bonded?
Nope. And to answer the chair's question earlier, any of the RFP process that is happening in FY26, the current fiscal year that we're in, is not affected by this language. This only affects expenditures in FY27.
But what could affect this current RFP is the negotiations in terms of going forward with BGS and the entity that bid on that RFP are entering into negotiations right now in terms of the lease payments, the cost of that, what the state would pay. And they're also doing some design documents, BGS, in working with a potential developer in terms of what the building or buildings need to, the size of them, what they're going to incorporate, and that all ties into the negotiations of those lease amounts. So that's what's going to happen on the BGS world between now and July 1st. So they already have about 300,000. And this 700,000 is to continue those negotiations and design work. So this is where it gets in the crosshairs because BGS is in the process of negotiating with a developer. Sure.
Where is this language going next?
I don't know if this language, this would be pulled into the budget, is the idea of the final destination of this. I don't know the path of this language because based on some late evening conversations yesterday, there may be some objection to whether or not it's permissible essentially to delegate this kind of legislative decision-making to the chairs, right? There had been discussions about this going to JFC, which might better address some of that concern.
The way we've structured that in the past, to go to JFC, that's Joint Fiscal Committee, that's the only committee that can take any action of session. It could be upon recommendation from those respective chairs. We've done that in the past.
Right, and another way you could do it if you just want a clear objective contingency to meet, although this may not, I have the sense that this doesn't satisfy folks, but upon submission of the unambiguous written analysis, which presumes that you then have the information that you need. It wouldn't require approval. It would be a clear contingency that the executive branch could meet, right? Just submit it and it's there. But I had the sense from discussions yesterday that folks maybe don't like that.
So I just want to lay on the table. This is not being driven by us. It's being driven by Human Services Committee. And the thinking is to be put in the Appropriations Committee bill, but also put in our bill, because we're in the crosshairs. And if we don't have some language in our bill, and then it's only an appropriations bill, when it gets to the end of the session, in conference committee, we have no say because we don't have any language. So it's kind of important we say something so that we can be part of that discussion come the end of the session. So Troy.
I'm a big fan of controlling what I can control and not trying to control what I can't control. And I cannot control what Human Services and APROPS want to do with this. I don't like bringing it into the capital bill. I most certainly do not want to impede the development of a new permanent youth stabilization facility. I am incredibly uncomfortable with where justice involved youth are currently being housed. They're in expended They're in FEMA trailers that are beyond their expiration date. We have heard reports of them being in the basement of a sheriff's office. And that does not serve our youth well in any way whatsoever. I'm incredibly opposed. I don't want to play the political game here. I know what they're doing, and I think it's really inappropriate that we don't have the information we need from the administration right now. That's on them. If they want to withhold that information for whatever reason from the legislature, I think that's a bad look. This office or this committee decides where we're going to spend capital dollars. And I think spending capital dollars on a youth stabilization facility is a really good use of our money right now. So I don't want to impede that. I know there are more players that might do that anyway, but and I hear your point, Chair, that we need to stay at the table, and maybe that means bringing language that keeps us at the table.
Gotta be at the table.
I get that. I don't like this.
I mean, this is where there's policy committees see things in a certain view, a certain lens. You get into a money committee and you see where the rubber hits the road with money. And it's a whole different lens that you're looking at. And it's very hard sometimes to meld those two. I think that's what's happening. It's like, okay, just stop. You don't need to keep doing what you're doing with the construction. Just stop. Well, we've gone out, this is the third RFP we've had. And we've been looking at replacing the Woodside facility since 22.
Yep.
And we've heard a lot of pressure from different entities that we need a facility to replace Woodside. And we've been working on that. First, we were gonna build it, and then we said we can't put that pressure on the capital bill, and then decided to do a design build, and we looked at state-owned property first, and then the community there was issues there with the community, so we pulled out. And last year, we went out to see if there was any land available that we could purchase or work with a developer, and BGS went out with an RFP. I think it was back in December. And they just got that back about 3 weeks ago, and they've started negotiations. So this language is not going to stop that negotiation between now and the time a bill becomes law, either the budget or our bill with this amendment. It's going to continue. But the question is, under what footing does our department negotiate with the developer? Because they could know that we're going to keep the 700,000 in our FY27 budget. We're not going to zero that out. But if DCF doesn't come forward with budget numbers for the operating costs of that to provide services to the youth, that's going to be on hold. And we're trying to have a release valve by having something in the summer if DCF does not come forward with the numbers that the money committees and the policy committees are looking for. Then we're trying to find a release valve during the off session to release that money to go forward. And that's what the intent of the amendment is. What's the committee thinking? Because they want to put this in the budget, so they need to know today. It's a decision today, because the budget is going to be done today, and the final vote will be Monday on appropriations committee.
I'm always curious when we're discussing privatization or having it state run, obviously, and you were talking about that as sort of something they were wrestling with at the beginning. I didn't necessarily see anything in this language that sort of fleshes out that more. It's all just the numbers, right?
We were talking about
yeah.
construction costs on our end.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
started out originally that we were going to build the facility. And then we looked at the pressures on the capital bill and our bonding capacity. We were also going to build a new women's facility.
Yep.
So those were the two big pieces. And then it was decided to do a design build, because then it doesn't take the capital bill to buy land, own the land, do the permitting, zoning, and then build the building. So they decide to do the design build, and then we pay it back in the lease payment. Now, that lease payment, we do that, that lease payment comes out of DCF's budget. And I don't know if they're even looking at that. But that will come out DCF's payment, that lease payment. So the negotiations that BGS is doing right now with DCF at the table with the potential developer is talking about those lease payments and the costs, because it's gonna impact DCF's operating budget as well. And I don't know if the policy committee and approach is even looking at that piece. They're looking if you contract out with the provider to provide the services. Kevin?
Well, why would we have any confidence in the numbers they give us if they give it to us under duress because of legislation like this?
You should get a number, you're not getting anything now.
And I've seen it for 35 years. You press somebody who's in charge for an answer, otherwise you don't support it. They give you an answer and it's either worthless or. So I'm back to the question, why are we trying to twist someone's arm rather than communicate with them and say, we can't support you if you don't give us what we need? Who has tried to do that?
We have been trying to communicate. This is my experience, and I hate saying this live. Of all the entities that I've dealt with in the state, and I was in the human services for 6 years, I find that DCF specifically is always the most challenging.
Okay.
And you get the least clear answers, no matter who's the deputy commissioner in charge. I don't know why. It just seems to be something that happens. It's not because people aren't asking. I can guarantee you that. And the next division or department over can give you the answers all day long to whatever question you ask them about their thing. It's always DCF. That's just my experience. Doesn't, and I think a lot of people will share that experience. Can't tell you why. Just what everybody seems to have for an experience.
Okay, so then back to my 35 years of experience. If you can't get the answer out of this person, you go to the person over that person.
You're gonna get the same answer because the person up there is telling that person.
So why doesn't the governor want to support moving forward with this activity? Let's get to the root cause of it rather than trying to leverage in a situation like this. Makes you feel good, but it doesn't accomplish it.
I'm not so sure it's not supporting going forward.
Yeah.
It's more not sharing what the operating costs are going to be. And that, separate branches of government, so we're putting pressure on the executive branch. Who means that the legislative branch has. Problem is, we get caught in the crosshairs. That I think policy committees don't think about, like transportation committee or our committee or even appropriations committee, when it gets into money piece and you're working towards something, and where you are in that world is not where the policy committees are. So we need to weigh in on this. I know the chair of Human Services was okay with the language, and that was before Katie McLean weighed in. Representative Bloomley said in an email she's waiting for the chair of Human Services and waiting for me as chair of corrections and institutions to give the okay on the language, and then they'll put it in the appropriations.
Is the expectation that we put it in our bill?
Yes. I mean, I would encourage that so that we're at the table. If we don't have any language in our bill, we're out of the discussion. And we need to be in the discussion.
Agreed.
I feel quite strongly about that. And I was the one that presented to the chair of Human Services, when she brought this up to me Tuesday morning. I said, well, we can't just stop this. I said, we're in the middle of an RFP and designing this new building, new facility. And I said, we've got to keep this going. And that's when I suggested at least you get check-ins monthly for joint justice oversight. And then it developed into this other thing. And I think the way that you can deal with Katie's concern is, and we've done this in the past, a joint fiscal committee can release it, can, we make the decision for the go-ahead, but based on, I don't know if it's approval from the chairs of those respective committees, or you'd have to look at previous language that we've done, because we've done it in previous situations. That's what I would recommend we change in B. I would change B.
Sure. I can change to.
I understand the frustration. I also understand the political blame. I understand that. That happens all the time. Doesn't matter who's in what power, what position where, or
Yep.
who's in the fifth floor, who's in the legislature. That happens. I mean, that happened when I was a freshman.
Also, if you reduce bonded indebtedness and replace it with design builds, you're only kidding yourself.
You're still paying, it's just.
And you're
coming
still
out of a
paying somebody
different-
juice.
But that's not the issue. The issue is who's gonna provide the services to those kids, and what's the cost of that? That's the issue.
But that's
That's the
nothing to
issue.
do with the jurisdiction in here. It's-
Well, we're in the crosshairs because we're in negotiations with a potential builder. So if they don't get that budget information in terms of who's gonna provide the services, then everything we're working on comes to a stop. That's how it plays out. Right.
I am not politically astute. I need it simpler. There is a need for this many beds, right?
14 beds. And then once the 14 beds get up and running,
Yeah.
the trailers in Middlesex go away. That's the thinking.
In theory.
So we need these beds. And is the concern then that we're gonna build this facility, but there's not gonna be enough money to staff it to capacity,
Well, they don't know that information up front.
right? But so is it a question of transparency or is it a question of we build it and nobody's gonna come because we can't put people in there to work?
Transparency.
Well,
The DCF needs to come forward with a budget.
yeah, that game's gonna be played all day long. Okay, then I do get it.
And that,
Yeah, and that's why they're proposing the language.
Yeah.
Feet to the fire and say, come on.
and as we talked about yesterday, in different entities right now, the operating costs per bed is drastically different.
Yeah.
Nearly double from, or half.
Where they've already contracted out.
So, are you, not that I think that anybody in government's necessarily gonna go like, hell, we're gonna go with the most expensive one, but we want some like answers as a team to say, hey, listen, this is what we're looking at,
Mhm.
because if one's 1,800 and one's 4,400, I forget what the exact
40.
number.
24, 44.
Yeah, something like that. Those are drastically different, and maybe because of where it's located, maybe it can't be the more affordable one, or there's a reason. I don't know the reasons, but let's have a conversation. And yes, that level of detail is probably not our committee, but if they're not getting it upstairs either, then that's troublesome.
Kevin?
What's it costing us currently to house the individuals that are in this program right now?
Well, they're spread out through hotel rooms, they're spread out through police cruisers, they're in emergency rooms. The beds that we are contracting for right now, there's 4 beds up at the trailers in Middlesex at Red Clover. DCF is contracting with a particular company there to provide services. And I believe it's around 2,200 or 2,400 per bed per day. In Wyndham County, they're just opening up 3 beds down there. DCF is contracting with a different provider, and it's coming in at 4,400 per bed per day. And that's what's really say, whoa, wait a minute. If it's gonna be that much for a 14-bed facility plus 30 other beds that may be out there elsewhere, we can't afford that. And we need to know those numbers before we move ahead with putting more beds online. That's what they're trying to get at. And if it's going to be 4,000 plus per bed per day, then the policy committee and appropriations committees needs to figure out, do we contract out for services? Or do we hire state employees to run the facility? That's what they're trying to make that decision in a policy committee.
I'm not doubting your numbers, but are those anecdotal or? are
Those are numbers that have been said upstairs and downstairs. That's what the contracts are for and have been, but DCF has entered into, and 4 beds up the trailers. They've been there 2 years. I think it's been 2 years.
At least.
And then the Wyndham, those are just opening up. And DCF has entered into a contract with a different provider. Those are the numbers that have been given to Appropriations Committee and Human Services Committee from DCF. And that's what's triggered this conversation going forward. What are we going to be paying for these beds? Because we can't afford this. Sure.
Just quick math too, because this helps me. At $2,400 a day, that's $850,000 a bed per year. If it goes up to 4,000, it's $1,400,000 per bed per year.
So 2.2 million.
Just to keep that,
7 beds, 2.2 million for 7 beds right now. 7 beds.
just need to throw those numbers.
So we're at 14 beds. That's pretty substantial budget impact. And that's what they're trying to get. And DCF isn't coming forward with the information.
Just for comparison, it's about $320 per bed per day for,
Mhm.
it's about $320 per bed per day for incarcerated adults.
So that's what's before our policy committees. And I get it.
Yeah.
They're saying, wait a minute, before we go forward anywhere, we need this information, administration. I get that. I think we all get it. The issue is we're in the middle of negotiations, at the beginning of negotiations with a potential developer. And what does this do to BGS? But it's not going to impact them now because they can go forward now, but for FY27 with that 700,000, all of a sudden that could just stop if DCF if the administration doesn't come forward.
And how is our position or how are our goals advantaged by being on this putative committee of conference? Should it come to that? What do we do?
We're at the table discussing. If we
Meaning
don't
what?
have any language in our bill, it's
Right.
up to the
What
power.
does being at the table get us?
Gives us a voice that we can share what will be the implications for BTS, because they won't reach out to BTS unless we're at the table. Policy committees here have no clue what BTS is. They think that they take care of a building and they mow lawns. So there's, over time, there's always been some issues in other committees that implicate BTS and they're not reached out to.
And will not the other policy committees be arguing for transparency and a desire to know the actual numbers without us, with or without us?
It'd be for operating costs, but it's not the construction piece. It's not the construction piece. They won't be looking at a construction part and where they are in the process. They won't be looking at that. I went through that when we built the state hospital.
Yeah.
I went through that. Been through that before with other items built. BGS isn't on anybody's radar. Period. I hate to say it bluntly, but it's true. And it's not people's worlds. It wouldn't be your world if you weren't in here.
True.
I mean, when you were in human services, you never even thought of BGS. Brian, did you ever think of BGS in education?
In those lines, man. I mean,
I did when we went for a tour.
Sorry, man.
Buildings I had,
no lines, right?
Yeah, if you don't have the reason to.
You don't have a reason to. It's more insulated.
We all think about potholes, but every day we don't
About
think about
what?
potholes, but we don't think about the logistics behind it until you're on transportation.
Well, people hit potholes.
Mhm.
That's what they think of.
That's what I'm saying, that's more open and you still don't think about the logistics of it.
So a voice at the table will protect from us. A voice at the table will protect BGS's process.
Right.
Because if we're not at the table, they're not going to reach out.
Right.
So should we pursue redefining B? And then
Yes.
Yes, Wilson, right.
hold our nose and say we're okay with the language?
I'm not okay with the language, but I understand why it needs to be there. Yes. Or I understand why it's being proposed.
We would need to have the language in it.
Okay. I will hold my nose.
I think we all will.
So
Not reported on the floor.
just for orientation, the,
Well, the appropriations bill goes out first. So they're gonna,
you're free to include, in the capital bill, but just to note that for today, this is not the committee's language. I just want to make sure.
Yeah.
And this is really a talk that is happening
well,
elsewhere.
so what I would recommend to both Representative Lumley as well as Wood is changing that B.
Sure. And I think they would,
Fiscal work with Katie McLean, and make Katie,
I expect they'd be receptive.
because that will then need to be put in the big bill. So I'll have that conversation with Representative Wood. That will just update B section for a different process. Because we did talk about that when Teresa and I and John sat down. I suggested joint fiscal, but that changed. Joint fiscal is the chairs of approps, chairs of Ways and Means and Finance. And is it 5 and 5? No, it's.
1 second.
I'm trying to think, is it? Because I think Representative Wood is on there for the House.
So currently it's Representatives Feltus, Kimball, Kornheiser, Shine, Wood,
Yeah.
Senators Beck, Cummings, Lyons, Burnsley, Weston.
So you've got your chair and vice chair of Ways and Means, your chair and vice chair of approps,
One more.
and then one more for each side. And who's the other one for yours? Yeah, Teresa's on.
Woodson.
So right now, for the folks that would be involved in this, so the appropriations people, Human Services, which you've got Teresa here, and then, so they'd have to weigh in basically on Senator Lyons, but she's not on there.
She's on. She's on.
So it would be Wendy and me. That they really have to get approval for. Because we're not on JFC. All the others are on JFC.
Mhm.
So we may want different. Into my summer. Will be the first time.
That's why you get the big bucks.
Yeah, really. So why don't you kind of work with Katie on that? Circle back with us on the language. We need to be on the floor. I don't know how long the floor will be, but when we are finished on the floor, depending when that is. If we're done, we do have a long calendar, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So if we get out close to 11 or 11:30, take a half-hour lunch and then come back.
Yeah, President's.
Take a half-hour lunch regardless. And the other thing too, folks, if the floor is gonna go beyond 12 or 12:30, and there's a bill coming up that you don't have an interest in, it's gonna take some time, go have lunch.
Okay.
Get out of there and eat
Right.
your lunch. Because, we could be on the floor till 1 or 1:30 and then poof, everybody's in the cafeteria. Oh, we gotta eat. So,
I saw you saying this a while ago, so I've been doing that for
Yeah.
some time.
Prophylactic measure. Yeah, well done.
and it helps the cafeteria because they don't get bombarded all at once too. So we will go on the floor, we'll go out for you.